Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us. Tell us about Avalanche and what are you up to?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I'm excited to have a conversation and explore some things. But Avalaunch specifically is a it's a launchpad. It's a fundraising platform, but we consider it to be a lot more than that. It's I think a vehicle to accelerate an entire ecosystem, and like these ecosystems are built up of people and community and like intellectual energy and property, and the sale of these tokens kind of exists at the end of the line. Well, it's sort of this middle point between everything that a team and a developer has been working on, and then they're offering these things to a community to then grow on and grow into something else now that these things are kind of out in the wild. So I do have this sort of philosophical perspective on the way that these tokens, right, interact with people. And so on one hand, yeah, you're selling tokens, and on the other, it's like, what do these sales enable? And so Avalanche is an Avalanche specific platform. So Avalanche is a layer one blockchain that we believe has a lot of potential, sort of all the potential in the world. And that's why we're focused specifically here. Other launch pads will kind of be everywhere, try and do everything. We'll be on Avalanche, and we'll be on Polygon and Ethereum, and just support everyone. I think that's great too. But for the way that we build and our focus, it's too dilutive. So we have plenty to do, in Avalanche specifically. And so we work with teams building here at all stages, very, very early ideation stuff. And so we can take a team that's very, very like young and new and, trying to navigate the industry. Like you see that, right? You see like very, very smart people that you just kind of assume like know what's going on. And a lot of times they don't, right? Because this is like a lot of it's business, a lot of it's communication, marketing, and that can be tough for people. So by the time most community members or investors get wind of a project, like it's just kind of natural to assume these people have it all figured out, right? Because it's like, I'm hearing about it, this is polished product, like these guys must know what they're doing. And that's not always true. And so when people are starting to develop, they need help with that stuff sometimes. So we work with projects like early, and then we also work with projects that do have this stuff largely figured out and are ready to get their token into the hands of a future community because they've decided they want to build on Avalanche, and they want to be on Avalanche, and we facilitate that for projects. So outside of the token sales, we have this this incubation arm. We are developing other tools for teams like investors that are just generally like useful for the ecosystem, like vesting tools, distribution tools, so teams don't have to write these contracts themselves. And we just evangelize and support Avalanche all day. I think it's kind of easy to assume that a launch pad is just about the sales that they perform, and maybe in some cases that's true. But there's a lot of work to be done in Avalanche. It's a new, young ecosystem. There's just there's just so much potential, and so we're really just engaged in all ways, professionally, personally, with Avalanche. And so Avalaunch, the platform, gives us an opportunity to work with people with similar aspirations, kind of all day, and that's what we do.
When did you start launching? Yeah.
So we started Avalaunch, let's see, we launched our token in May. We had been working on it for about 6 months before that. And we're running our first sale in about 2 weeks. And, Avalaunch is unique in that we were pretty early to a young ecosystem. So it's kind of like early to early. And a lot of people expect the sales to be kind of happening all the time, like every week. Let's see a sale. Well, one, there's just not that many quality projects, right? You can't make them out of nothing. And two, Avalanche is still in a point where people are learning, people are exploring. This isn't like Ethereum, which is just this, huge, canonical chain that's been you just built, right? Everything's already there. There's still things that people kind of need to get their head around with Avalanche, and so that's part of what we do, right? That's unique to other ecosystems. Like we educate, we get people interested, help them explore, So it really is like a sort of like a guiding process a lot of the time.
If you want to talk about the tech and the solution that you're actually providing, which is unique and distinguished, what would that be?
Yeah. So the problem with fundraising in general is fairness. It's like just a really tricky thing. Like you have what feels like an infinite amount of people that want to participate in a very finite thing. So you have a lot of people who are excited about a project and not that much to go around. So how you distribute these things, the distribution becomes a really tricky thing. And when you're talking about a launchpad, one of the most important things is like, this sale going well, right? These are the people that now have your token, like they're your future community. Like you want this to go well and people to be happy about the way that it went down, so to speak. And so one of the things that makes us is unique, I think, is we have tried our best and thought a lot of time spent a lot of time thinking about how to make these distributions most fair. And when you're talking about fairness, it's like a philosophical term almost. Like it's everyone has a different definition of what that is. What's fair to you is not fair to me, maybe. And so as a platform, what's that?
It's relative. I mean,
That's right. It's relative. Yeah, and it's subjective. And so as a platform, you have to kind of like make a decision about what we think is most fair, because there's always trade-offs, right? If you're giving up this, you're gaining this, and vice versa. So you have to decide, like, we believe this to be the most fair. Like, how do you, because in crypto there's a lot of things to account for that people like don't like, right? Like whales, right? It's like how we don't want whales, taking the whole sale. That sort of goes against everything. What are you doing to make sure that multiple people don't participate? How do you make sure that the little guy that doesn't have a lot of money gets his fair share? How do you make sure that the rich don't get richer, right? These are problems that people want you to consider. And so if you want to have a successful, well-intentioned platform that like is trying to do these things in some kind of thoughtful way, you have to consider these things. I mean, you could do whatever you wanted, right? You could just say, hey, first come, first serve, and there are probably platforms that do that. But that's not very exciting, and it doesn't sound very fair either. And so we try and solve for this, and that's what makes our platform a little different.
How do you create that fairness? Is it through the consensus? Is it the computation process? Is it like how do you consider it? How do you evaluate it as a fair?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a couple things that we do. So one of the things that we do is just at a very basic level, we try and make sure that people aren't like creating multiple accounts, right? So there's not like, you can't come in with a large amount of our tokens and create 15 accounts, 20 accounts, 100 accounts, and just dominate the sale. Like really basic stuff, that the other platforms like have trouble with. And so we're trying to make sure that we don't have so much trouble there, and that can be tricky too. And it's just very basic, but the other things are we offer like guaranteed allocations. So other launch pads will say you have to hold X amount of our token to even be considered to get a lottery ticket to maybe get an allocation, right? So it's kind of like not that great. You can hold our token and maybe you'll get an allocation. So what we do is we offer guaranteed allocations. If you hold any amount of our token, you'll get something, okay? Now, if you hold a very, very small amount of our token, your allocation will likely be very, very small, but we can't, again, make tokens out of thin air. And so another thing that we do is kind of this like wealth redistribution throughout the platform. And this is where we really start to deviate from other launch pads. We have mechanisms in place so that when people are coming into the system, when they're staking, when they're depositing, and then when they're exercising those allocations that they've earned by staking in the contracts, they're having fees exercised against their stake. And these fees are going back to other people in the system, which include these smaller players that may not have enough, right, to get a meaningful allocation in the sale. So the idea here is you could be someone with not a lot of money, and buy a little bit of our token and hang around and be part of the community, and over time be earning your way toward a larger allocation to sale, earning off the backs of people that, I don't know, have more money, more had tokens at that time, whatever. Now these aren't, you know, perfect solutions, right? But they do allow us to say, hey, like, we are thinking about this. We are trying to make this better and more fair. Like, the question of, well, I don't have as much money as this next guy. How can you help me? Right? Like, that's like a big problem. And, you know, maybe not even our responsibility, but we like to be able to at least think a little bit more creatively about this, and say, how can we make this more fair over time? Right? Because you can't say, well, I'll just give you money every sale. You can come message me. But we can say, if you're a part of the community and you're going to participate and have a little bit of the token and stake over time, you know, you'll be bigger, and that's, I think, pretty cool. And, you know, fundraising, token sales, ICOs, you know, this stuff is not typically very exciting. It's not very philosophical. It tends to be kind of just crummy all around. But I do think there's a real opportunity to kind of empower people, at least a little bit. You know, I don't try and like puff myself up too much here, but this is how we think about it. So we keep it interesting. And we keep it fair. And I think there's a way to bring this back to the community and empower people in a way that can get them excited and feeling good about it, instead of like, I didn't get my ICO spot.
For people that do not have kind of like a technical background, it might still be a question of how, by holding on to the token, they can actually generate revenue, and what that percentage of the revenue would that be. If you can explain that, for example, in English, for some people with.
Yeah, for sure. So our token is the XAVA token, XAVA. So it's like AVAX. The Avalanche token is AVAX. We're XAVA. AVAX in reverse. And if you hold that token, you go to an exchange and you buy it. Holding that token offers you allocation.
Holding in the wallet, you mean?
In our staking contracts. So you would come to our platform and you'd put it into our platform, and based on how much you stake, we determine your allocation, how much you're getting in this public sale at the time of the sale. So the more you stake, the more you'll likely get. But what's different here is that you know, other platforms, you have to have a minimum. There's no minimums here, but there is a maximum. Right? So if you have $100 million, you know, you can't just come take everything. You can only participate up to a certain point. And this goes back to the fairness. So the return here is, in holding the token, is when you're holding the token in our contracts, you'll be earning more tokens just based on the participation happening around. And then also the sale, right? So you're participating in this sale, presumably because you think this is a reasonable investment. You know, you like the project, you want to hold their token. That's really what you're doing. You're buying other projects' tokens so they can receive funding, and, you know, as an investment or a way to participate in their community, and it provides access to these sales. Now, what happens with those tokens after the sale, you know, it's kind of up to the future. But that is presumably why you'd be participating, is because you like the projects that we're working with and you think there's a future in Avalanche, right? What we try and do is we try and get cool, good builders on Avalanche. And so if you're excited about that and you think Avalanche is going to grow and these are good projects, by holding our token, you know, you can participate in the future of that, at least partially. Right.
And if you can tell us about the roadmap, and also kind of like the different stages of the project itself and the MVP later. It would be really great.
Yeah, for sure. So we have been going through the user testing, the community-driven user testing of like our MVP now, and that's, I think, we're going to run the last test today. And you know, the platform's been ready for a while. We're just trying to, the things that I'm talking about, like you kind of caught on to, can be a little complicated, especially for like a user. And so what we've been working on with these people is making sure the user experience is like really clear. That's been like the challenge, because there's a lot of stuff happening. So we'll be done with that user testing, done with the UI sort of user flow improvements, you know, in like 2 days. and that will be done. And then we'll be ready to, run sales and get this out the door. Now, as far as the roadmap goes, what we really want to be doing, in addition to these token sales, is offering a suite of tools for teams and investors to just do crypto investments better. So these are like token locking tools, token distribution tools. So if you're a team and you've launched your project and you put liquidity into an AMM or something, so people, the token's liquid and people can get in and out. A lot of times the community, what's become, expected almost is that you lock that liquidity, like you can't take it out. So if I'm a team and I raised and I say half of this raise is going to liquidity so everyone can get in and out, and we're going to lock it, right? So we're going to provide tools for them to do that. We're going to provide tools for, vesting and distribution. So these tokenomics can be, fair and appropriate. And then we're going to do some stuff around, offering like farms for other teams to be, because at this point everyone has to have a farm, everyone has to do DeFi, even if you're not DeFi, right? If you're a crypto social network, right, you have to have a farm. And so we're trying to make, and that can be tricky. So we're trying to make this stuff easier and help teams have a better rollout. And those are the kind of things that are on the immediate roadmap, just helping teams raise and start communities better.
So basically, DeFi is the fundamental aspect of your technology.
Our platform, like I think about it more as DeFi. Yeah, there aren't a lot of token sale platforms I would put in that category. I guess it's a pretty broad category. We're buying and selling, but yeah, this is definitely a DeFi application, and I think it resembles DeFi because there's like game theory and economics happening within the contracts, right, that make it really interesting. And so we've tried to blend those elements of decentralized finance into the sales.
That's amazing. And in terms of the competition out there, what is it most? I mean, I believe you mentioned about the fairness. Also, looking at the future, if, for example, your competitors are also kind of like coming up with a solution for fairness, what would be the next unique thing that perhaps you could say that your platform would be distinguished?
That's a great question. I think there's two components to this. So there's like the features of the platform and like what the platform does, and then there's the team behind it. And one of the things I think a really good launchpad does, and the launchpad niche industry is like kind of new. Like token sales have been around forever, but the way that launchpads work now and the trend in the market's not that old. It's like less than a year old. And so launchpads are evolving. And I think the good launchpads aren't just, hey, come run the sale, it's going to be really fair. I mean, that can work too, but it's about it's about the network that they can offer for teams, to help, the advisory, the integration into an ecosystem. Those are the intangibles that I think make us competitive in the face of, quite frankly, much larger launchpads. You have some like real established big players in the game that are, again, these multi-chain kind of building in every ecosystem, but we're niched, right? We're down in the trenches of Avalanche. So if you are interested in Avalanche and interested in that community and the color and the character of it, I think we can help you understand that and launch inside of that, just because we spend a lot of time in it. So if that's interesting to you, I think that's kind of like our unique value proposition. So the competition question is kind of an interesting one, because if we're not, it's like almost like if Avalanche isn't right for you, we're probably not right for you. You know what I mean? So there's probably a better suited platform for you. So the competition is I think there's just kind of plenty to go around. We're trying to service a very specific type of project that has a very specific set of ideals. And if that doesn't jive with you, and it very well might not, that's okay. And there's other launchpads. There's a lot happening in crypto. And so there's plenty to go around. So I think that's part of what keeps us competitive, is that we're very particular, and hopefully that translates to quality.
That's great. if you can explain whether your platform could be a B2B or B2C, which one do you think it's much more close, or is it both?
I guess it's B2B. And we obviously service customers, at the base layer there, but we really work with teams as a collaborator. So this is, us as Avalanche coming together with another project, another team, which you could consider a business, to collaborate and do something strong for their project. So this is a B2B endeavor, although we service retail as well. So I would say B2B. It's just it's so crypto. It's like kind of everyone, it's like let's just make good things.
Perhaps we should invent something else. It's not a B2B, B2C. Perhaps in crypto we have to, go beyond abundance, right? So what are the also I have a question about the discount for the sales. So since you're going to be launching in 2 weeks, is there any discounts?
What do you mean by discounts?
I mean, as a kind of like, previously on ICOs, we had airdrops, and also for the sales of the tokens, we had discounts at a certain price before the ICO would go live in public. But do you offer any discounts for the token for the stakes?
Well, what we try and do is, by the time someone's running a public sale with Avalanche, they've gone through their private funding, generally speaking. This is just generally how it works. They have to run some kind of seed round, some kind of private round, and then a public round. And this kind of opens up an interesting point, right? Because what's happened is, these rounds have gotten very far apart. So private investors will get like this very, very, very cheap token, and then the public retail people, who are really the community, are being asked to buy this at some like insane multiple. And sometimes this is appropriate if you've really invested early and you've been working with the project for a year. But a lot of times this isn't the case. A lot of times the seed round will happen just weeks or even days before the public round, and it's just sort of kind of who you know. And that's just the nature of the beast, right? But what we're trying to do is bring these things closer together. So the public round and the seed round aren't so far apart from the so far apart, because what happens is once the seed round realizes some kind of insane multiple, right? Because crypto happens, these things go to the market, they pump 10x, 100x, and someone that's paid 2 cents for this token and it's now worth $1 has that kind of every reason in the world to sell. So, and that hurts retail and that hurts the project. So we're trying to bring these things closer together, so it's just a smoother experience. So we don't offer a discount, but what we do is, kind of going back to what I was talking about before, is you can earn more of the token just by participating in the sales. So in a way, that's it abstracts that a little bit, but it's the same thing. And you can, be a bigger player, grow more earning power just by participating.
I would say that's how you're distributing the fairness.
Well
said. That was my tricky question that I wanted to ask.
Okay, sneaky.
But no, that's amazing. Actually, that shows the solution is working, the technology and the IP, of course. That's what needed. So if you can tell us a little bit about the tokenomics of your MVP. How much did you guys raise? And if that's possible.
Yeah, so we raised total about $900,000, so less than $1 million. And we didn't do like a public sale. We just raised and then listed on a decentralized, an AMM, Pangolin, which is the native AMM, one of them now on Avalanche. And so we also did something a little different, I think, because again, by the time, you have to kind of be in crypto trenches to understand this, but like by the time a Telegram room opens up and the community opens up, and you're like, hey, I like this project. How do I participate? You know, the private rounds, the seed rounds, these things are well and done. Like those kind of aren't for you. And again, there's parts of this that are sort of the nature of the beast, right? And a lot of it is appropriate, but it gets a little warped in crypto. So one of the things that we did is we had this Telegram full of, you know, strong supporters, but we weren't doing a public sale or anything like that. So we collected names and emails, and we had, like, you know, we said, if you want a chance to participate in the private round, you know, fill out this form. And a lot of people did. It was like thousands and thousands of people. And so what we did is we took a chunk of that private sale and just gave it away to, you know, like 1,300 people. So we didn't take money for it. It was just a way to involve the community at a level where they're not typically involved for free, to kind of signal and show that, I don't know, we were here for the right reasons, and that, you know, we wanted people to be involved. So we gave away, it was around $1,300, $50 private sale allocations, vested like a private sale investor would get, to the community. You know, the people in the Telegram, just to do it a little different. You know, not a huge gesture, but like, you know, something. So we raised total 900, like roughly 900,000. And we didn't do any kind of public IDO or ICO, which is ironic, right? Because we're a token sale platform.
Exactly. And what is the revenue model for your platform?
So, so we don't currently, we could be charging a fee on the sales. So if you're going to come and raise $500,000 or something, you know, we could take a percentage of that, 5 or 10%. That's pretty common. We don't do that at this point. We're just interested in, you know, establishing ourselves and seeing where we can be useful. But those kinds of things, those kinds of deals can be pretty lucrative. And so if we were, that is where the majority of the revenue would be coming from. But we also have, you know, the token, and there are, you know, we hold ownership of some of these tokens as the team. And so at some point, you know, years down the road, you know, maybe we'll realize something there. But again, you know, we come from other projects, other like established crypto organizations, and we've been doing this for a while. And this is just, you know, we don't need to be taking a fee right now. We're just trying to, again, really help Avalanche, you know, work to grow it.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's the beautiful thing about DeFi. I mean, we've seen in the other projects too, because I mean, the sector is still growing. I mean, it's just very, very tiny in the beginning, than how it is being reacting. And obviously with everything that is happening, for example, in the NFT even marketplace, or stake tokens and farmings and all these kind of like aspects of gamification, still it's developing. Even like some of the projects, they cannot announce a roadmap because the technology is still growing, and every day they can come up with a solution, and they can actually expand their IP and technology and the solution. So it's quite, I mean, it's quite amazing that everybody in this kind of like ecosystem is the co-author. They're like basically growing and kind of like writing, I believe, the technology together as the retail investors, as the kind of like users, artists, for example, in the NFTs, and even like the teams, businesses, like platforms. They're just like quite expanding, and that, I think that's the beautiful thing, that it is unpredictable and uncertain. And I think it's not always a bad idea to work in an uncertain and unpredictable, I think, environment. But it's quite fascinating that what you guys are doing. So what are the Telegram channels? So if people, users, want to actually tune into to get more announcements and details about the project and everything.
So you can go to our Twitter, which is avalanche.app. And you'll see the link to our website, the link to our Telegram channel there in the bio. And you know, that's probably the best place to get us. We have a few different local communities. So we have like the English speaking community, but we also have a Japanese community and a Turkish community, because crypto and Avalanche specifically is very, very big in Turkey. So we have a Turkish community. We have a Vietnamese community coming out, and a few others. So we try and have a global reach and service a lot of different localities, and because again, just the more people, the better, right? But that would be the best place to find us.
Great, thank you. Anything else before we wrap this podcast up?
No, I just want to thank you for having me. It's always good to come and talk about why we're a little different, or at least we try and think about this differently. It's because it's a hard thing to communicate through marketing. It's easy to just say, oh, this is the 900th launchpad you're going to come across, but we do try to do things a little differently. So it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck with the launch.